This is the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Neiman. If you're looking to generate wealth and passive income in the lucrative world of mobile home parks, you're in the right place. You'll discover solutions to the common legal and operational pitfalls and how to optimize parks to maximize income. Your host is in the trenches. He's a real estate attorney, financial analyst, and mobile home park investor and operator. Now, let's turn it over to Ferd Neiman.
Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd Neiman here again, Dave, with another episode of the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast. Got a great guest for you today. He comes out of the single-family fix and flip business, but he's become a mobile home park owner-operator as well, and going to tell us a little bit about his story, his journey, and give you some pros and cons along the way. Please help me welcome my guest, Victor Alves. Victor, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, Ferd. We're doing good. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm a listener, so I'm always it's been a pleasure to be here talking to you today.
Hey, no problem, man. Glad to hear your story. And as you know, a lot of our audience are mobile home park owner operators like yourself, but a lot of them are not yet. They are hopefully going to be inspired by your story, right? Is how to go from one business. There's some similarities. I used to do single family myself and duplex, and there's some similarities along the way. And then there's some new challenges and then some new benefits. I think the MHP business is a little more complicated, but it can be more fruitful as well. So tell us a little more about your background and your story.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm originally born and raised in Brazil. I came to the U.S. on a tennis scholarship. I played D1 tennis in South Texas, McAllen, Edinburgh area, and for some of you that are familiar. Then moved to San Antonio on a sales position. Worked for sales for about a year or two, and then I got a little bit of a transition on my visa with my employer. And so we kind of, my wife dragged me to a, 2-day, 3-day seminar about flipping houses. And next thing you know, you're flipping houses. And so we bought into a coaching program, did that for, basically like just that till end of 2019. Then we kind of got introduced to the MHP space. And at the same time, we were kind of like looking at multifamily. And so when I got introduced by one of my lenders, he just, I was like, man, this looks like a great industry to be a part of. And so I was like, then the more I got, studying about it, the more I'm like, okay, there's a lot of more nuances in this business than, in a regular, like single family or even a multifamily type of business. So then I was like, so we got that learning, got some more coaching in this, and, fast forward to, last year, we ended up buying, 3 parks with about 109 lots total, we're fully back in the game. And then we also have a property management company that we opened in 2022 with the vision of like, okay, we have clients on the single family and small multifamily space that, for people that we've worked with before, but we mainly built it to be able to manage our portfolio as we grow in MHP space.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, it's definitely more nuances. I agree in MHP. And then what's interesting is multifamily is generally more competitive. So it's like MHP is a little less competitive. You can hopefully get a little better deal, but it's not for the faint of heart, right? So there's a big learning curve. I think self-management is the way to go, at least at the beginning till you learn. So for your management company, do you intend to also do third-party management or on the mobile home park side, or is it just building the kind of the framework and backbone for your own portfolio expansion?
Yeah, we actually do third-party management for single family and small multis. And we actually added a client last year towards the end of the year that has a small, like 10 sites, mobile home park nearby. But mostly like the idea behind it was, if we can get third-party clients, it's great. That helps us, fuel an income to be able to build a team to manage our parks, and then it's vice versa benefits, right? So we have our own, like I say, like 75% of our portfolio that we manage right now is our own stuff. And so we get to test things out and then just apply the good stuff that goes to the client's, portfolio. So we get to do the mistakes and, just pass along the good stuff.
No, that's great. I mean, that's part of the teamwork aspect of it too. I mean, that's part of I like the legal practices. There's a lot of stuff I can learn from my clients too. We mostly do MHP. We just closed a couple really complicated large scale apartment complexes. And it's like, oh man, you got ticks and 1031s and you got PINs and, it's acronym soup, right? And then there's $40 million and you got a bridge lender and it's like, man, this is kind of complicated. We need to make sure we're getting all this together, right? So it's good. And some of that stuff, some of those more nuanced strategies are more rare in the MHP space. So it's nice to be able to dip our toe in. And I've done third-party management on the MHP side for several years as well. Don't do very much of it. I personally don't like it as much, but I got some sharp clients, right? So they learn from them and vice versa. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So what was the main motivation to make the jump, and then to tell us about that transition? Because it's a lot of people in our industry, I feel like, do that. They come from the single family business, and eventually a lot of them get tired of flipping houses because it's like you do one and you make money, and you got to find another one, you got to do it again. It's definitely not passive, and it's not as certain for the future. But is that your motivation, or what tell us your journey?
Yeah. So I think, there's a couple. One was like a partnership, termination or ending. That's one of the triggers there, but like really was the inconsistency of, cash flow, right? We had, we were buying for like 3 years straight, like about 36 houses a year. Like, so those are acquisitions, and we were selling a lot of those houses, as well. So you have a lot of transactions, a lot of projects, which, I'm not a big fan of construction. I thought I could handle it, but I don't really like it as much. And the other part of it is, so the biggest thing for me was the inconsistency on cash flow. And it's a big output of cash. Like you have a fixed amount of money that's going out, basically every month in marketing and staff and, and rehabs. But you might not have a project closing every month. We might go like 2 months without it, and then you have like 1 month that closes 4 houses. So it's just a very inconsistent part of the business. And I was like, when I got to the MHP space, I was like, the first thing that really got me excited was the fact that, you could just rent the land. And I was like, I don't have to fix a home. That's amazing.
Right.
That was the first light bulb. And then, then the kind of like understanding, about the, what you're doing for the affordable housing component of it, which is kind of like the, warm and fuzzy that I really like. And the fact that, you could really, find a more consistent cash flow and at a lot better entry price than you're getting in multifamily, right? You can pay, I don't know, depending on the state, like I say in San Antonio or Texas, I don't know, between 35 to 50,000 a pad versus in multifamily, you're paying like 100 to 130 a unit, right? Which is crazy. So that's that's kind of a few things I really enjoyed got me excited about the space.
No, that makes sense. I mean, and as far as a per unit or per door, they talk about a lot multifamily. I was having a discussion the other day because the lender was like, "Oh, we're getting 70,000 a unit for MHP in this particular market," and it's like that felt like a lot because it's like, well, going by the per unit cost. It's to me, it's a more simplistic metric. As it's like because obviously. What if I just bought a park for like 8,000 a unit, right? But did I just get a good deal? Well, I got a pretty good deal, but no, part of it's a function of it's 40% occupancy.
Yeah.
And the NOI is low, right? So it's, if you use cap rate or you use some sort of discounted cash flow analysis, like it's a more sophisticated analysis. It's like, well, a unit's not a unit, where in multifamily, a unit's not a unit, but they're kind of similar because most multifamily are going to be 90% plus rented. Now they may have below market rents. They may have the ability to upgrade the units, push rents, but for the most part, it's not 40% occupied, where a lot of MHP, especially by from mom and pop older parks, they might be 20, 30, 40, 50%. And which is obviously going to distort your per door per lot. I mean, but it doesn't mean you're, 8,000 a lot is a home run of a deal if it's worth only 8,000 a lot. Right.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that, on MHP, that's funny because, you could have, like a very low price per lot because you have a lot of vacant lots, right? Exactly. And if you don't have, it's very different in a multifamily, right? That's one of the biggest nuances that we're learning, that kind of like took us some time to learn, is that, a unit is a unit. The unit is there. You don't have to bring anything there. All you do is lease it, right? Maybe renovate it and lease it. In a vacant site, you have to bring a home, or somebody has to bring a home there. So that site is not really like doing you any good until a home is there. So I think, like, to your point, is like the cost per pad or per site is somewhat irrelevant to a point, depending on how the park is ran.
Yeah, it's a more of an imperfect metric, and with the benefit, of course, of MHP is you can take a park that's got 50 vacant sites and you can add homes there, where you just can't do that in multifamily. It's just you're not gonna add a second story on a one-story apartment complex, right? And generally your land coverage ratio is already to a certain portion. You can't build adjacent either, so you got what you got. So that's one of the reasons it attracted me to MHP as well. So tell us what some of the easier and some of the harder steps through the transition. Obviously, if you're already doing flips, you're already understanding construction, managing a crew, budgets, a lot of that stuff. But so that, to me, that I was presuming that would be the easier stuff to transition over. But then there's lots of other things, infrastructure, otherwise it may have been foreign.
Yeah, I think, like, the locking down, the CapEx improvements for me was a little bit easier, especially because the parks are close to home. So like they're all kind of around here. So I can use a lot of my original crews and people that I've used. So that's been, that's been a easy transition. I think the other part too, since, we did manage a few Section 8 and a few other lower income housing types, we kind of understood the clientele a bit. The main difference is that, you have to kind of feel the demographics of who you're dealing with, because we have a park in Uvalde that is like a lot of like older folks there. It's not like a 50+ community, but like there's a lot of older people there. So, getting them to understand to pay online or do stuff like that, that was a fun challenge. A call every single day of like, hey, how do I do this? I got locked out. Or how do I, we actually had to have a 2-day event, that I call it, that we went there to the community, and like everybody came, and just like, we just set them up on their phone because they don't have a computer, don't have phones, and told them like, hey, this is how you see the bill. This is how you pay the bill. Here's your set up your bank account. Here's your credit card if you want to have a credit card, and then you get to choose when they pay. Took a good, 3 months to get everybody in sync, but now it's pretty good. Now our park in San Antonio, or the one closer to San Antonio, we had a lot of, I'd say like a more younger crowd, not too young, but like, more tech savvy. And those were like super easy to transition into that. I think one of the biggest things for us also is we have the San Antonio city water, city sewer. All the other two are septic and city water. Okay. And so understanding a little bit of the maintenance, we always scope the lines to check the sewer lines and everything. I think one of the things that we've added to our list is to actually have like a septic company come and check, professional septic company come and check the septic tanks and stuff like that. Because we had one community that 3 months in, and we like already pumped like 5 of the tanks, right? And so, which, it's nothing wrong with the tank, but it's just like, if I had probably sent somebody out there to check, I could have probably got that negotiated into before I closed, but or just knew that that's coming up the pipe. But yeah, I think that's, for us really has been to understand infill as well. So it took a while to find good priced homes that made sense to bring into the community, right? Because we didn't have a lot of vacancy. So our San Antonio park, had like one vacant, and then our one in Poteet also had one vacant, and then our one Uvalde, we developed 4 new pads, which was pretty cool, and I thought a lot easier than what I was expecting with the city itself. And so, but yeah, we got that taken care of. So then we have like 4 vacant lots that we have to infill, and I'm like, I can't find good homes. We finally got this last month, found like some nicely priced homes that we're going to be, that we bought and we're going to be taking to the park. But it's just a tougher situation, especially when when your park does not qualify for the programs, right? The cash program or the legacy program, because they're too small.
Yeah, that is definitely a challenge, and it's harder in today's environment than it has been, at least in my short career in the space. Is it's harder to find used homes at good pricing, and then for the new homes, if you're a new player or a small player, it's like you can barely get the attention of the factories, and you got long wait times. And then if you do get the attention of the factories, it's hard to get approved by the financial institutions because they don't see it being worth their effort. Like, oh, you got 5 pads, I don't care. I've had that problem on some parks where I'm already in the programs. I'm already approved. I've done dozens and dozens of homes with these guys, and they're like, "Well, but this new park only has 10 vacant." I'm like, "Okay, I'll sell you 10." They're like, let me give you 10, and then I also got 10 park-owned homes. I can do 20. I mean, we're looking at 20 transactions. They're like, 20 transactions is nothing. They're like, "Well, we'll put you on the back of the list. We'll get you in a couple months." Like, come on, guys. I've made you guys millions of dollars here, millions of dollars in loans. And they're like, "Well." We don't even, so it's definitely, I feel it even myself, it's a pain point with some of the lenders. Like if you don't need 100 homes first tranche, they're like, yeah, we don't care. It's like, what? I mean, it's hard to, even if you find a park that has 100 vacancies, that's a pretty bold move to bring 100 in at once. I'd like to, do 5 or 10 and see if I can sell them in this market, because that's, I mean, we all learn, whether you go to Frank Roth's boot camp or other, you learn to, test the market beforehand and do a test market. The problem with the test ad is it's just a test ad. You don't know yet who your customer is, what their credit is. You're not running their credit. You're not seeing if they follow through. You're not seeing the stability of their employment. So you can't fully test demand, on Facebook Marketplace the month before you buy it. You can get a general test for demand, but so that is definitely infill is one of the most important from a value add perspective, but also one of the most challenging components of this industry.
Right now. 100%. Yeah. I was like, I tell this all the time. I'd much rather buy a park with a bunch of park owned homes, but they're there and I convert them into tenant owned homes than to have 50% vacancy, which again is where you add the most value, but have to bring in a ton of homes. I have to go shopping for that. It's not as fun.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, that definitely makes sense as a transition point. What are some of the other things maybe been easier than you expected, or just other tips you can give to people who are trying to follow in your footsteps here?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I was talking to somebody the other day was that, just understand what you're going to be improving in the property and budget for that and add some, buffers into those things. I feel a lot of times, you might be eager into getting into something and you just, say like, okay, like I can, use the cash flow or, do something else. Like just make sure that you're budgeting for those improvements and you're having, enough operating income, in case things go awry. Right. So I think that's it doesn't go as planned, or let's call it. So that's one of the things that I feel like is very important. And one thing that I brought on a lot coming from doing it, over 100 flips is that like, if there's something that can go wrong, it probably will go wrong,
Yes.
And so just be prepared for that and have enough on your budget. And I think, the most important thing is just find good people around you, right? we've worked together on you helping us. We're actually talking about the RV leases and things like that. I think like find good people that are in the industry and you can surround yourself that will help you be able to, with more ease and confidence, get into the space if you're not in the space, and also with more ease and confidence scale, right? Because once you get in, if you like it, like, I do, even more now that we're in it, is like, once the scaling process is like, when you get, figure out, okay, what do you need to scale? What are some of the nuances and things that you need, and who's your backup call if you don't know the answer, or that's what's really important, at least to me.
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, when I was doing single family, I remember learning that from seminars, that was build your power team, right? And you got a bunch of people on your power team, and that makes sense. I mean, I want to mention the RV leases because you brought that up. I've had a lot of people asking about that lately. There's a lot more people, it's so hard to find homes right now that people are saying, hey, can I fill my lots with RVs? And it's a different animal. You can run an RV in a mobile home park generally just like in a mobile home. It's okay, I'll rent it to you for a year, skirt it, deck it. You're basically a smaller mobile home. But some cities don't see it that way. They see it as an RV. They see it as a transient guest, and they won't let you do it, or they use it as a way to neuter your grandfather rights on MHP. So we always try when we do our zoning letters to get a permission for both RV and MH in the park, but it doesn't always work. Sometimes they just say, no, not at all. I see other people doing a lot of RVs and mobile home parks, but running them like RV parks. So the short, even by the night, by the week, by the month, more amenitized, utilities included, things of that nature. And you can do that. Certainly. It's just it's a little bit of a different animal from an operation standpoint. And then you got to be cognizant of city regs, and you got to be cognizant of what's your exit strategy from a lending perspective. I looked to buy a park it's been probably almost a year ago or more now in the Kansas City market. And it was like 30% RV, and the lots were small, so they had to be RV. So I know why the guy did RV, but I looked at it like I couldn't get the regular loan on it because the bank was discounting that RV income. So my net loan was going to be like 55%. It's like, well, based on that, I can't pay the same price because I'm not getting the same leverage return. So I went back and forth, and we couldn't get even within $100,000 or $200,000 of price because I couldn't get the same debt. And there was a disconnect between me and the seller on that. But that's something that I don't know if he had contemplated at the time. Like, look, I might not be able to get my sales price because my buyer pool is going to be restricted because of this particular constraint with the lending environment.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good point. I think you're bringing up the loans. I think, a lot of times it's important for you to realize what lenders, and if it's your first time, I usually say like, this is my first loan was also done this way. It was like, use a broker that, focuses on MHP, because they'll find you the lenders and they'll walk you through the steps and figuring out, and then, go talk to some local banks if you're doing smaller stuff, because, you can typically save a little bit in the costs, but, also build that relationship a little bit stronger with the bank. But, it's just understanding the financing, right? Are they giving you some credit? Because some lenders will give you some credit on vacant pads. Some of them will give you credit on the RV income, some won't. And so just understanding kind of, how each one of these different lenders that you have on your, power team, right, operates is a big thing, because, it can go from you getting, 75% loan to getting, like you said, a 55% loan, which totally changes your returns. Yes,
absolutely. And I've had it happen before where the lender comes in lower than I expected, and I'm already in the middle of my due diligence. It's like, well, I can't really renegotiate price because my lender caused a problem, right? And so the seller's like, that's not my problem. And I'm like, well, it's going to be your problem if I can't close. And they're like, well, don't close. It's like, oh, crap. So that's, part of the risk, and you live and learn, hopefully get smarter along the way. But I think that's one thing that a lot of people just don't think about is what's the exit strategy. I had a mentor at one point. He bought a second home, and it was a really big, really nice, really expensive home. And he's like, yeah, I bought it for pennies on the dollar. I think he bought it for like 60 cents on the dollar. And because the economy had crashed in like 07, 08, well, then his business kind of went in the tank. And he's like, I can't afford this it's like a 6,000 foot second home. He's like, I can't afford this second home on 3 acres of lakefront and all this. Well, he didn't really have an exit strategy, because that size in this market, that size home, and that only a small fraction of the population could afford that size home for a second home. And those that could recognize there were 10 other ones in the same neighborhood that were in foreclosure. So they weren't going to pay retail price for his when they could buy the one next door for 60 cents on the dollar. So he's like, I made a big mistake. I thought because I bought it right, I was golden, but then I spent more money and I fixed up, and I needed to, and then I was going to sell it at the same discount. And it was like, I did all this work to it and everything. And he didn't think about the exit plan. So I always kind of remembered that. And for me on mobile home parks, the exit is, what's a preliminary exit? What's this thing going to refinance at and how? Or what's this going to sell at and how? And who's my buyer and what kind of financing can they get if they need it? And if you don't, and that's where the private, I've got a park with septic, but septic is a component of that. Is you're probably going to have a higher exit cap, because there's more risk, there's more operating expense, there's more, regulatory environment that could go wrong on private utilities. So that's okay. But it's okay if it's into your analysis. It's not okay if it wasn't in your analysis and you get surprised. You don't want to get surprised in this business, right?
Exactly.
People do it all the time.
I know. I agree with you. I think especially on when you're underwriting, you can get it's so easy to underwrite, have a happy underwriting model. Especially if you start, especially when you're newer and you're looking at stuff and you're really want to get in the business, it's so easy for you oh, maybe I can increase the rent, $20 the second year. And then their number is just whoa, changes like crazy. Or hey, maybe, my exit cap is not, 8 is a 6. Let's see, and it's so easy for you to do that just to make yourself feel good about it. But like you said, when we're underwriting our stuff is we look at, obviously it's a refi within 3 to 5 years. That's kind of what we look at. And then hold it for longer term, till 10, kind of where the model ends. But we always look to if we need to sell this thing within 5 years, what does that look like? Right. Because there's always that exit component that you want to have in case you need it. And also understanding your loan, when does it balloon? Because, you need to make sure that you're following through with, with that part of the plan. Because if you have a loan that balloons in 3 years, you better chop on your whatever your CapEx is so you can refinance quickly or sell. If you're doing one that's 10, you have a little bit more, wiggle room if things don't go as planned. So, especially with interest rates and the economy.
Well, you're right. There's so many variables that you can't control that you got to try to get right the ones you can, or have reasonable assumptions. I've looked at pro formas from clients that I'm like, wait a second, you're going to do what? You're going to refinance. I had a guy 2 days ago said, well, the seller, who's also a broker, told me I can refinance after 90 days with the local bank and take my cash out. And I was just like, I wouldn't bet on that. I couldn't get that loan, and this is your first park, so I doubt you can get that loan. And sellers are liars and brokers are liars, so don't believe them, right? But don't base your assumption on this rose-colored scenario. And I see people all the time, oh, we're going to do a 80% cash out after 6 months. We'll have all the equity back, and then we're going to make a bunch of money as a promoter. I'm like, what if you? I ask them the same thing. What if that doesn't work? What if you can't get your cash out? What if they tell you it's a 65% LTV? Well, now you're not going to get that extra 15% until you sell, which you've got in your model at year 10, which means you're eating ramen noodles for a while because you're not going to get your GP share out of the deal because you can't cover the pref or you can't cover these other hurdles. And so, I mean, it's easy to be the second set of eyes on a pro forma, right, and poke holes in them. But what we need to do is, as buyers and borrowers, is be the first set of eyes and poke our own holes in them so that we don't get ourselves in trouble. But it is, you're right. It is a temptation. And I've said this before, it is on here in Microsoft Excel, no one's ever crafted a pro forma that ends in bankruptcy. But in real life,
that is true. People
go into bankruptcy, and every one of those guys or gals had pro formas that showed this return, especially if they're raising money. Oh, it's going to do this. And it's always a big number, right? It's always up. It's always like, oh yeah, our trust us, our assumptions are conservative, but some portion of the population files bankruptcy, but no one wants to talk about that on the front end. It's like, you need to be paranoid about that, in my opinion.
No, that is true. I had one of my, mentors that has been a lender for me, in the single family for a while, is that, he says, like, you have to look at, especially depending on the stage in your life, is like, can I recover from whatever I'm putting myself in the situation of, right? So if don't, which means he's saying don't overstretch yourself, but he's like, if you put yourself in this situation, if you buy this property, if you do this, and it doesn't go as planned, can you recover from it? It goes to complete crap, right? Can you sustain, whatever you need to sustain? And that's a question that, a lot of people don't ask yourself. And it's easy too, because, you don't want to think about the worst case scenario, but, you're an attorney. So that's kind of what people pay you to do sometimes, is to like, hey, what are the worst things that could happen, in this situation? In partnerships, one of the biggest things that I tell when you're getting into partnerships with anybody is just like, meet with an attorney and have him like grind you on all the things that you can do to hate each other. And if you get out of that meeting and you're still happy with being a partner with that person, then go for it. If you have a little bit of gut in your stomach that you maybe shouldn't, don't do it.
Yeah, no, I just finished reading a book the other day, and he talks about it from a hiring perspective. He says from hiring and in business and in life, it's either definitely yes or definitely no. There's no in between. And if the answer is not definitely yes, it is definitely no. So partnerships, that's definitely one of them. Hiring somebody is definitely, if you're not sold. I gave the example, an old girlfriend told me this, like for a lot of women that go shopping, they try it on in the store. And she said, if you don't look at it in the mirror in the store and think that it just makes you look beautiful, it's never going to look better than today. So you better not buy it. Because tomorrow when you take it home and you try it on, you're going to be like, oh, maybe not today. And you'll put it back in your closet. 5 years from now, you're going to have a bunch of shirts and dresses that you've never worn because you were like, I'll just buy it. I'm sure it'll look better when I do my makeup, or I'm sure it'll look better when I'm whatever. And it's like, if you don't love it in the store, you're not going to love it later. And that's how I feel about hiring people or about a partnership, like, or even a deal. Like if I don't love it, we looked at a deal the other day and we were almost there. I mean, we were relatively close, and then somebody else was higher, and they did kind of a little mini call for offers, and we ran the numbers again. Like, I don't know that I want this deal anymore, at this price. And my dad used to oversee construction at a bank, and they were building a relatively large bank in our small town. So all the who's who of contractors wanted to bid on it. And Dad knew the guy that won the bid. He went to high school with him or something. He called him and said, hey, congratulations. You're going to get the bid for the new bank. And instead of being excited, the contractor said, I wonder what I missed. Because he's like, he's like, a group of my peers all refused to do this project for the price that I just committed to do it on. Maybe they're greedier than me, or maybe they estimated 800,000 for the vault, and I estimated 500,000, and it's really 800,000, and things like that. Again, maybe I missed something, and I'm not. You're always kind of half excited and half nervous, and that's how I was thinking about that deal the other day. It's like, if I win this bid, I'm not going to be that excited about it. And if I'm not that excited today, I'm not gonna be more excited when I'm actually working on it, and under due diligence and all this. So I thought that was kind of a good analogy from my past.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, great analogy. Because if you don't like it now, chances you're gonna like it later is very, very minimal.
Rarely in your due diligence or in your operations, you'd be like, I didn't think of that, and it's better than I expected. Like, it doesn't happen very often, right? So it's like, you can, as much as you try to be conservative in your assessment, it's like there's always this like emotional, I want this deal, and it's like you got to take the emotion out of it and just use the logic.
That's true. That's very, very true.
Good stuff. Well, Victor, any other tips or tricks you want to share before we jump?
No, I think, just make sure that you're surrounding yourself with good people that can help you whenever is needed. And just get into the business. I love this business, and I want to see good people getting into them. So for those that are listening.
All right, great, man. Appreciate it. Hey, where can people find you before we go?
Yeah, so Facebook, you can look me up, Victor Alves, or you can email me, Victor at Vecno Capital, which is VECNO, the word capital.com, or in our website, vecnocapital.com. That's pretty much it.
All right. Thanks, Victor. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ferd.
You've been listening to the Mobile Home Park Lawyer Podcast with Ferd Neiman. Ready to learn more? Go to www.themobilehomelawyer.com for free resources and materials to help you succeed. If you love the podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, give us your review, and subscribe today. Thank you for listening. Neither the Supreme Court of Missouri nor the Missouri Bar reviews nor approves certifying organizations or specialist designations. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.